Hello, everyone. For today, I will discuss the corporate governance and ethical considerations and the different approaches to corporate governance. Corporate governance is a system of rules, practices, and processes by which a company is directed and controlled. Corporate governance is essentially involves in balancing the interests of a company's many stakeholders, such as shareholders, management, customers, suppliers, financiers, government, and the community as a whole. While all systems have the same objective and have origin in similar legal frameworks, the framework rights and makeup of governance structures can vary considerably. While the specific elements of corporate governance are many, they generally involve emphasis on creating and maintaining company direction and promoting goodwill with shareholders and other stakeholders. Corporate governance is often analyzed around major theoretical frameworks, and the most common are the agency theory, stewardship theory, and the stakeholder theory. Agency theory defines the relationship between the principals as the shareholders of the company and agents as directors of the company. Like, for example, in corporation, the principals are the shareholders of a company, delegating to the agent, such as the management of the company, to perform tasks on their behalf. Agency theory assumes both the principal and the agent are motivated by self-interest. Both parties are motivated by self-interest, therefore agents are likely to pursue self-interested objectives that probably deviate and even conflict with the goals of the principal. Yet agents are supposed to act in the sole interest of their principals. As for stakeholder theory states that managers in organizations have network of relationships to serve. This includes the suppliers, employees, and business partners. Stakeholders are generally divided into internal and external stakeholders. The internal stakeholders are the corporate directors and employees who are actually involved in corporate governance process, while the external stakeholders may include creditors, customers, suppliers, government agencies, and the community as a whole. Stakeholder theory looks at the relationships between an organization and other in its internal and external environments. It also looks at how these connections influence how the business conducts its activities. Stakeholders can come from the inside or outside of the business. Like, for example, this includes customers, employees, stockholders, suppliers, nonprofit groups, government, and the local community, among many others. Well, for the stewardship theory states that a steward protects and maximizes shareholders' wealth through firm performance. Under the stewardship theory, company executives protect the interests of the owners or shareholders and make decisions on their behalf. Firms that embrace stewardship theory place the CEO and chairman responsibilities under one executive, with a board comprised mostly of in-house members. Their sole objective is to create and maintain successful organization so the shareholders prosper. This allows for intimate knowledge of the organizational operation and a deep commitment to success. The stewardship theory of governance has a clear objective of shareholder satisfaction. Having a single leader creates one channel to communicate business needs to the shareholders and the shareholders' needs to the business. This also avoids confusion as to who is in charge when a company needs to weather a storm. Stewardship governance requires that a CEO be trustworthy and willing to put personal gains aside for the good of the organization. To better understand the stewardship theory, it is helpful to contrast it with the two other popular governance styles. The agency theory focuses on checks and balances type of governance. The CEO and chairman of the board are two separate entities, and the board of directors, which is comprised of mostly independent members, is tasked with monitoring management to avoid problems. While the stakeholder theory examines the needs of not only shareholders, but of every faction associated with the organization, including employees, suppliers, and business partners. And no one specific group is more important than the other. The company's basic approach to corporate governance is to engage in fair, logical, and speedy decision making based on the collaborative creation with shareholders, users, employees, business partners, local communities, and other stakeholders to enhance corporate value. There are two approaches that are usually used in corporate governance. These approaches are used by the companies to have good corporate governance. These are the rules-based approach and the principles-based approach. As for the rules-based approach, in the rules-based approach, companies follow the rules or pay penalties. Rules-based control is when behavior is underpinned and prescribed by the laws of the country. Compliance is therefore enforceable in law, such that companies can face legal action if they fail to comply. While for the principles-based approach, companies adhere to the spirit of the rule or explain why it does not comply. This does not mean the company has a choice not to comply to it. It just means that it can temporarily explain why it has not complied with a certain rule. Then later on, the investor will judge the punishment for this non-compliance. The principle of comply or explain means that companies have to seriously consider the general principles of relevant corporate governance codes. The compliance is required under stock market listing rules, but non-compliance is allowed based on full disclosure of all areas of non-compliance. As for your tasks for the concluding week of the midterm period, read 03 and 04 Handout 1, and do not forget to answer 03 Activity 1 and 04 Quiz 1 and Midterm Quiz 1. Midterm task performance is now available on ELMS. Instructions are already provided in the task performance section, and the task performance will serve as your midterm examination as well. So please settle your account so that your TP scores or task performance scores will be recorded as for examination. For questions, clarifications, please message me here on MS Teams or in ELMS or in Facebook Messenger. So that's all for today. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, everyone.